Were the Mongols ethnically Proto-Huns, and were the Huns the Proto-Turks? Brilliant, brilliant question. You're going to the heart of the matter over here. So here's the deal: the Mongols and the Turks essentially are the same people. If you go back 2,000 years, 2,500 years, they have the same ancestors. Their ancestors were the Huns, the Hunnic peoples. So if you see the history of the Turks before they became Islamized, they practiced the same culture and religion as the Mongols. They practiced Tengrism, which is a polytheistic, pantheistic religion with elements of nature worship, shamanism, animism, ancestor worship, and much more. It has an entire pantheon of gods and goddesses, which is strikingly similar to Vedic Hinduism. So this is the belief system that the Mongols practiced, and the Turks also practiced this before they became Islamized. The Turks were Buddhists at some points in time, and that's the history that they had. So the Mongols are the descendants of the Huns, not the Huns, the Huns. And the Turks are also the descendants of the Huns. And the Huns went all the way into Europe. Attila, who sacked Rome, was a Hun. He's called Attila the Hun. And the Magyars, the people of Hungary, well, they are also the product of an ancient Hunnic invasion of Europe. So there's a very interesting history. The Huns are a very fascinating people, and they spawned these two separate ethnicities, the Turks and the Mongols. But the Turks and the Mongols have a great deal of similarity. For example, when Mustafa Kemal Ataturk embarked upon his Turkicization process, his Turkification process after winning the Turkish War of Independence in the 1920s, the first thing he did was to sanitize the Turkish language and remove all Arabic and Persian words from the Turkish language. And he replaced these Persian and Arabic words with Mongolian equivalent words, with Mongolian synonyms. So he recognized the fact that Mongolian language and culture is very close and similar to Turkish culture, and that the Turks are essentially the descendants of the Proto-Huns, the Proto-Mongols, Proto-Huns and Proto-Mongols. And we don't realize this, but there has been a wave of Hunnic invasions into India. They were called the Shweta Hunas in Sanskrit. In English, the Hephthalites. This happened more than 1,500 years ago. Many of these waves of invasion by the Huns were repulsed. Eventually, the Huns did break through. They did conquer parts of India, northern India. They did conquer parts of Afghanistan, which was very much part of India at that time. And they assimilated harmoniously into Indian society. Some of them practiced Hinduism, some of them practiced Buddhism, and they defended India and India's national interest. It's very interesting. And they promoted India's culture. For example, the great mathematician, astronomer Brahmagupta, his patron was a king of the Sri Chapa dynasty, whose name was Vyagramukha. And Vyagramukha was a first generation or second generation immigrant into India. His father or grandfather was a Hunnic invader. So this guy, the son or grandson of invaders, was the patron of one of India's greatest scientists. And he was also a patron of the arts and culture. So the first wave of Hunnic invasions into India, you could call them the first wave of Turkic invasions, was a very different wave in many ways than the second wave, which is the so-called Mughals. So the original Turkic invaders of India, the original Hunnic invaders of India, were very much assimilated into Indian society, and their descendants probably live among us today. So to go back to your questions, the Mongols are the descendants of the Huns, and so are the Turks.